perform, as well as how they should be rewarded. Apart from that, the policy also provides for predictability in terms of how the employees are going to be working. Remember, when employees are working, they want to know how their work will be measured, as well as how their work will be rewarded. So it's important that you have a policy that makes things to be predictable. The policy also allows the employers to kind of retain the top talent, because one of the things that happen, especially to those who have the qualifications, they have the experience, and they work very well, mostly that kind of top talent will leave when they see that there's nothing that is coming their way, they are not being rewarded. So having a reward policy in place helps with staff retention. So it's very, very important that you have those kind of policies in place, which helps the company to then retain those people that will add value to the company. Really, there are so many advantages, and we can go on, but key to it is that a company needs to have these reward policies in place, and the policy allows the company to manage the employees very well. Once the employee performs, it is very clear on what will happen to the employee, if they are a non-performer or if they are performers, how the company will treat them.
Amazing. And now coming to you, Mr. Mlinga, you being a talent expert, I would also want to find out some of the principles of a reward administration that the company should pay attention to.
Thank you, Patricia. Reward administration is a process that should not be done haphazardly. It's one that requires careful planning, and you need to be given enough resources and a careful thought. Reward administration guides the management of reward administration basing on various principles that we can talk about: equity, consistency, competitiveness, and transparency. When we talk about equity, we are saying every reward system should be distributed equally and fairly across the organization. This will ensure that we do not have complaints of favoritism, complaints of changing camp, shifting. Today you are administering it this way, tomorrow because of a certain relationship or friendship you have with certain employees, it's administered differently. So equity demands that we base our decisions on employees' competencies, responsibilities, and their contribution to the institution. Then we'll talk about transparency. An effective reward system should be transparent. We need to communicate in clear terms to all the parties involved. All the employees need to know the provisions of the policies and procedures that guide the reward system. We don't want a situation where management, for example, is keeping certain information and people are having surprises at the time of, say, rewarding, or maybe around this time when the year is coming to an end, people don't know what's involved. Mm-hmm. They don't know what's involved in the process. They have no idea on what leads to the evaluation and what they go through. And they may also not know how their performance contributes to the reward system. So it's very important that the policies are clearly spelled out in the reward system. The other thing is that the reward system should be consistent. We should administer it also fairly across the division. And we should ensure that everyone involved knows that when you do this, this is what will be done, and it should be done at any given point. This will help us to avoid also favoritism. It will help us also to ensure that we are consistent in all the processes that we are doing. The other principle that should be paid attention to is the principle of competitiveness. The reward system should be competitive. By that I mean organizations strive to be competitive in the labor market. For you to attract top talent and consequently retain it, you need to reward handsomely. And when you reward handsomely, you attract people who come in. And once they come in, the system also, the process or the reward system in this case, should be able to retain them just by it should be so good that people are not leaving the institution because they're not rewarded handsomely. So when the reward system follows those or applies those principles, we should be able to run the reward policy properly. There are a lot more. We can talk about sustainability, we can talk about adaptability, communication, inclusive and diversity issues. There could be a lot more other principles that we can focus on, but mainly those four will help the reward system to proceed.
Amazing. Now, Mr. Kabanda, coming to you, you being an employment expert, in a situation where it is found that employees are poor performers after the appraisals, how should companies deal with such a situation?
Yes, so when a company undertakes the appraisals, there are a number of outcomes, and definitely sometimes you will find that some employees' performance is below standard. For that group of employees, the company and supervisors in this case, they need to be very deliberate about how they deal with that kind of a situation. The first part is that the supervisor and the employee need to have a candid conversation. They need to have a constructive kind of feedback. The supervisor should be very clear about helping the employee to understand the areas where that employee needs to improve. What that means is that the employee also needs to be open to listen to what they are being taught in terms of the areas which they need to improve. When the employee has gone through that appraisal and they had an opportunity to discuss the appraisal, and at the end their results are lower than the standard, they have to start listening and understanding which way do they go and how do they start improving. So there has to be that first step. The second issue that the company and the supervisor in this case may look at is the aspect of performance improvement plans. Now, in performance improvement plan, what that means is that the supervisor and the employee are going to now sit down, discuss the specific areas that this employee now needs to improve on, and they are going to work out a plan. And as it is, this plan could be for maybe 3 months or 6 months or whatever period that has been agreed between the employee and the supervisor. So the supervisor now gives the employee specific targets to start working towards during this agreed upon period. And the employee will have to commit to improving on those areas. The supervisor also will have to be working with the employee closely, monitoring the employee and giving the employee the support that is needed. So part of what will come out of these kind of appraisals where the person has not been performing is that performance improvement plans. Apart from that, we should also emphasize that from these results, the employer or the supervisor in this case could also start putting the employee on specific training and development programs. Apart from the performance improvement plans, the employee could also be put on certain training and development programs to help them to improve. But we also must emphasize that there comes a point, even through these evaluations, if it is determined that we have been doing these appraisals and the person has been supported along the year, and maybe they are also given a number of warnings, and yet they were not improving, we should also make it clear that such low standard performance from an employee could result in summary dismissal. And this is the part we know a lot of people don't want to talk about. Unfortunately, those things happen, especially when you go to companies that have a high performance culture where everything has to be done on point. You find that as long as it is now determined that this employee, from the time that they are given to perform and improve, they have not improved. So at the time the appraisal is done, they have not yet still improved. At that point, the supervisor may raise charges, and then the employee will then go through the whole disciplinary process. They will have a committee, the person might be now found guilty. The facts are there because that's why their evaluations were done. So the person will be found guilty of not performing, and thereafter, depending on the provisions of the disciplinary code of the company, the person can then unfortunately be fired. So it is important when we talk about these outcomes of these appraisals to bear in mind that it's not always rosy. It's not always about getting an increment. Sometimes these appraisals, the outcomes that could be there is actually somebody losing employment. And this is why in the last episode we are emphasizing that supervisors need to make sure that they do proper appraisals. They need to make sure that they have followed everything. If the supervisor was not appraising the employee properly and it is going to lead to that employee being fired, imagine now what will happen, because the supervisor will not have proper evidence to demonstrate that this employee is actually a poor performer. And yet the company is taking the necessary action of firing that person, which could also lead to legal cases, because the employee has a right. Once they are fired and they do believe they were performing, they have the right to also sue the company, and the company has to prove that indeed this person was a non-performer. And that's why we always emphasize this aspect around managing the outcomes of appraisals, that it is a very serious issue, and that's why supervisors and companies and managers need to pay a lot of attention to what they are doing when it comes to appraising and managing the outcomes.
Amazing, well explained on poor performance of employees. Now coming to you, Mr. Mlinga, what about those who are average performers, not so good and not so bad, they're just on the average level? How should companies deal with such? Because I know they might be having conversations in their minds. This person isn't giving us the best that we want, but it's not also the worst. How should companies deal with such situations?
Great. In organizations, there are diverse employees. Others are good performers, others are in the middle, like we've been talking. But we also expect to find those that are lagging. And the interest of every leader, every manager, is to see that team members are performing at their peak. So in an event that someone has been consistent with the average performance, it should cause concern. And every leader should get concerned and take steps to ensure that that performance is improved. In that case, I would recommend a few things that every leader should do, or organizations should put in place. Number one, they should provide feedback which is constructive and should be candidly done. Call that employee and communicate to them where they are not doing well, or where they need to improve. In certain instances, you find that employees are not performing well because of the tools that they're supposed to be given, but in that case, they haven't provided them with the tools, and they've also not reported or engaged the supervisor to say, I've been performing like this because I don't have tools. So there's need to provide candid and constructive feedback where the employee is told, and at this point, what is very critical is to mention the consequences of continued poor performance. They should be told, if you do not improve at this stage, this is what will follow. So the employee should be sat down, talked to. In the previously we discussed now to provide feedback. Of course, appreciate them on the good things that they're doing, then move to tell them where you think they will improve, and now provide that last part where they should know at that point that if you don't improve, there will be consequences. The second thing that the employee needs, the manager needs to do, is to provide training and development. Remember that in this process, we're able to extract the training needs. We're able to identify the gaps. So when we see that this person is average consistently for a certain period of time, we may need to recommend trainings to close those gaps. In the process, in the conversations, in the appraisals that we are doing, we'll clearly come out with the gaps. Is it accounting skills that this person requires? Is it reporting skills? Is it communication skills? So when you identify them clearly, now you can recommend. Is it that this person doesn't have time for training? You can recommend e-learning. Currently, there are so many modes of training. Some people will say, I can't go to school because I'm always in the field, I'm always in the office, in the busy office. But if you see that this person will still need this training, which cannot be done physically, you may go E, so that the employee is able to train and close the gap. You may recommend class trainings. You may recommend coaching, mentoring. So there are quite a number of interventions that you can make at that stage. The other thing we need to do is, the third point is to consider reassigning those employees to other stations or other units where you think their expertise can be appreciated and they can apply themselves well. But at this point, you need to be very careful before you take that move, because you may transfer a problem from one unit to another. So you need to first analyze what are their skills, what are they good at, because you've been with them, so you know, and you're able to tell, my person is strong in this area. This guy is good at talking to people, maybe he's a good salesperson, but maybe he's wrongly placed in the back room, maybe to work on computers. Maybe that person is having challenges in those areas. So when you identify where this person's strengths are, you can actually have a conversation with them. You explain to them that we have this situation, and of course, it will arise from various conversations that we've been having. And when you sit down, you just spell out, here, this is what is at stake. I've seen this one, here you are lacking, but I feel here you can perform better than you are doing here. Mm-hmm. The fourth thing that they would do, and in the worst case scenario, when all these measures have been exhausted, at certain times you actually write to them, you warn them about their performance. It could be that they are just relaxing, or they're just maybe being lazy. So maybe when you put up a write-up, they will jack up and change, and then you may have some improvement and see a better performance.
Amazing, well explained. Now, Mr. Kalanda, coming to you as an employment expert, you know, when people go to work, it's all about the monies. I know I'm going to work per month and I will get my money. So I just want to get your advice to companies on how they can give monetary rewards to employees who are in the high performance, people that have been performing greatly in organizations. So how should companies get to reward such employees?
Okay, yeah. So when it comes to the rewards for high performance, let's be very clear from the onset. There are two things that could actually happen. And again, it goes back to the reward policy that we talked about, as well as the performance management policy that the company has. There are companies that will not per se give the money when people perform, because that's their policy. But in many cases, when we talk about the monetary rewards, yes, the biggest issue is a salary increment. I know that even on our social media platforms, some people, when we started the program, they were commenting, appraisal, ka increment, they appraisal, meaning that people actually look forward to these appraisals because you are now expecting a salary increment. So how does this actually work? So when the company gave the targets for the particular financial year and the person has performed well, again, depending on the policy of the company, some companies have notches. These are salary notches. What that means is that you are on a particular salary this year, and then the following year they can increase by a certain amount, and you go into the second notch or third notch and so on. So you have the notch system or the direct salary increment system. Then you also have the bonus system. So it's important to understand the difference in these two. on the salary or salary notch system, what happens is that when a person performs at a particular level, they get an equivalent of what is in the reward policy in terms of a salary increment. It can be a one-notch increment or double notch, or I don't know, depending with what the performance result is showing. So a lot of times, really, employees look forward to these salary increments, because what it means is that if you are getting a 10,000 as an example, in the following year, because now that you have done the appraisals, in the following year maybe you start getting 12,000, the other year you get 15,000, and your salary keeps on going up like that. Whatever salary you have, it starts to go up like that, and this is tied to performance. It is not tied to the inflation. Remember, there are these salary increments that are given across the board. In some companies where they say, no, the cost of living has gone up, so let's increase the salaries. But in this particular case, salary increments which are tied to performance, it is individualized. What that means is that if you have performed, you are a high performer, you get that salary, while your colleague who might not have performed well might remain on the same salary. So we have to understand, and this is why we emphasize that companies have to have reward policies in place so that things are clear, like we said in the beginning. So with that salary increment, it actually now sits on your payroll, and it's a benefit that the employee is going to enjoy for the rest of their contract period. So you might have been on 5,000, the salary is now increased in the following year to 7,000, and it will be a payroll payment every month. So it remains beneficial to the employee in that way, and that's where you find even lifestyle starts to change, because now you have a bigger salary. And that's why employees fight a lot to get that salary increment. And that's why we have also said, when it comes to the appraisals, that supervisors and employees need to have candid conversations and be very clear about what they are appraising, because sometimes employees are evaluating themselves with that salary increment in mind. And the employers or the supervisors also sometimes allow these things to happen, and in the end, the salaries of the staff are increased. And that also, as we've said in the past, also increases the cost for the employer. So salary increments is really one way that employees can be rewarded when they perform very well. And as we've said, it is very beneficial for the employee in that it will also affect the basic pay. If you are on contract, it means your gratuity has gone up. So at the time you'll be leaving employment, you're actually getting more gratuity. The value of the leave days also goes up. So at the time you're separating with the employee, also your package will go up. So there are a lot of things go up. The salary is increased, and it is very beneficial for the employees, and a lot of employees actually like this. And it is also seen as a retention strategy for some companies. But we have to emphasize, where the reward is a salary increment, these things have to also be budgeted for by the company in advance. The supervisors need to bear that in mind. The company, that is the finance departments, the human resource departments, need to factor those things in the budget for the following year, because these things, that's why we have been emphasizing on the policy, it has to be thought through. It shouldn't be the company increases salaries for people, and all of a sudden the company can't even pay. No, it cannot be like that. So those things have to be planned for. So that is on the salary increment when you are using that model. The other model that is used is the bonus or incentive scheme. What it means on the bonus arrangement, when the employees have performed, the salary remains the same, but the employees receive a one-off bonus. So whereas in the other one, on the salary increment, we had talked about the employee maybe was getting a 10,000, they start getting 13,000 from the increment, or the 12,000. In this particular case, the employee will get a 3,000 salary, the bonus itself. But this one is paid once off. So it's not going to sit on the payroll. So you have to understand for why these systems are used like that. The difference lies in the fact that the other one, it will be on a monthly basis, and it increases the cost for the employer, of course, but the employer is saying, I've rewarded you. This other one, which is based on the bonus, it is a one-off. Sometimes they give you a big amount, you celebrate, you go, that's the time people go to push the trolleys in the shopping malls and so on. So that bonus is usually tied to a performance. So you are going to have in the performance management system some rates. This is what you get if you get 65%, 75%, 85%, 100%, and the bonuses are distributed like that. So depending again with what the company has put in place. Sometimes the company simply gives bonuses the moment it reaches a certain production target or service level or profit margins. They will give bonuses to employees. Again, we have to emphasize bonuses are very good for employees, and they are also good for employers. For the employer, it's a one-off payment, so they are able to deal with the fact that you are just planning for it for 1 month or one payment or one installment. So that's how the bonuses work. There are also other ways in which the companies can reward employees on the monetary side. This is where you have, for instance, the employee share scheme. What this means is that the company can choose, for instance, that they are not going to give you money now, but they are converting, so the employee works and performs in a manner that is deserving that payment, but the company doesn't give you the money. They allow you to buy shares in the company. So in essence, the employee as a share, they ride on the share scheme. You now become a shareholder of the company. So these things, what that does, and we have used this in some of the private companies. What that does is that the employees remain very kind of loyal to the company, because it's no longer a company where the employee is just working and tomorrow I'm going to leave. The employee now knows that I am part and parcel of this company. I'm also a shareholder. I need to make sure that this company performs. So again, those kind of incentives, they have to be well thought through. There has to be consideration about the legal requirements for payment of such and for implementing such kind of policies. So the share scheme for the employees is also something that is used in some companies, and it works very well, and it also helps the company to retain its staff, because now they become loyal to the company and they don't want to leave. There are also the quarterly schemes that are also used. So you can have an incentive scheme where sometimes it's paid at the end of the year. For some companies, as the evaluations are happening, depending on the timing that has been put, usually some companies, they will be calculating per quarter how the employee is performing and how the company is performing. Then at the end of the period, then you get paid those incentives. So that incentive scheme, again, this is why we say spend time with the consultants who know what they are doing in terms of helping if you are a company that doesn't have those things in place. There is calculation that is done. There are calculations that are done to allow for staff who are in front office or the front-facing staff, the admin staff, the technical staff. How do you then distribute the incentive in terms of when the company's performance and these profits are taken into consideration? So for such incentive schemes, it allows the company to reward the people who bring in the business and make the money, but also allowing the other employees who are not, for instance, in the field, or those who are not in production, or whatever the setup of the business. The people who are in those sections, they get a little bit more, but also the ones who are in the back office. At the end of the day, the focus is making sure that all employees are performing very well and they are getting the incentives that they require, the incentives that they deserve based on their performance. So on the monetary part, there are so many things that companies do. Sometimes it's those things where the company can also have a voucher system. Now, this is more or less like a bonus, but instead of giving the employee the actual cash, what the company does is to convert the value of that money that it needed to give to the employee. So on the voucher system, for instance, the company will go to a particular shop, depending on the location. Let's say you have your shopping malls. So your HR will go there, they sign up, and then they buy the vouchers. So they give now the employees. Sometimes these parties seem to be it's very exciting, especially when these bonuses or incentives are given in December when people are going for Christmas. So if the voucher is maybe worth 5,000 or 2,000 or 500, whatever amount, then what the employee does is basically just to take that voucher, go to the shop, hand in the voucher, and then they shop anything equivalent to that voucher. In that way, the employee now goes to celebrate with their family and their loved ones, and it is seen as a way of actually making employees and their families to have that celebration and celebrate the employees' performance and what is happening at work is also happening at home in terms of them enjoying the benefits. So, of course, we know sometimes people divert even when they go to shop. The person went with a voucher worth 3,000, but at home only 500 worth of goods reach. So, but really, when it comes to monetary rewards for staff, there are so many that can be used. What is key is for the company to think everything through and budget for everything so that it is, like it was said, there's consistency and predictability. When the person performs in a particular manner, they know that I'm going to get this amount.
Amazing.
Yeah.
If you have just joined us, you're watching Labor Matters on KBN TV. Please do send in your contribution using the number which is right on your TV screen. And in the studio, I am with Mr. Owen Katongo Kabanda, who is an employment expert, and Mr. Mlenga, who is a talent expert. So please, let's keep the conversation going by also going on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV, and drop us a comment. Now, coming to you, Mr. Mlenga, being a talent expert. It is said that money is not always the motivation, and but I'm now wondering, what are some of the non-monetary rewards a company or even an SME can use to motivate high-performing staff after appraisals?
Thank you. Non-monetary issues also have an equal impact on employee performance, just like monetary awards have. And they say people work for money, but recognition and appreciation goes a long way. So in case you're an SME, you're saying, I'm a startup, I'm a small organization. What Mr. Kabanda was talking about sounded like a huge cost on the budget. So you are there wondering, I have 5 employees. I just started this year. How do I ensure that I recognize my employees so that I also enhance their performance? There are quite a number of things that you can do to ensure that you also improve the employee morale so that they also perform at high levels. You can recognize employees' performance through a simple thank you. For example, just appreciate them for the job well done. It goes a long way. You could be working, they send emails, they send letters, physical letters, soft copies, you talk virtually or on phone. But when they do that extra job, you can actually walk in to their offices and thank them. You can buy a note, a card, and those are things that are found in these bookshops. There are quite a number of my post-it notes where you stick it note. Just thank them. They will greatly appreciate that. The other thing that you can do at a low budget is just to appreciate performance publicly. When they do good, you can also, say, write an email to the entire population of your organization, just to say thank this person for the job well done on this and this and this, but publicly. The other one you just do maybe one-on-one, but this one you can go an extra mile and just appreciate them publicly. Others have got newsletters where they publish peak performers. Others have social media platforms where you can place this nice note about someone's work performance. That goes a long way, and it will actually boost their morale and encourage them to work even harder next time. The other thing you can do is you can actually have some initiatives where a good performer goes out for lunch or dinner with the CEO, the unit head, the director. You know, just find a good restaurant. If you are here in Osaka or wherever, just go to a mall. Let them have a meal of their choice. Of course, restricted to just just a meal.
Exactly. That's where I was going.
A wing and a salad would do. Avoid maybe other drinks. That you can have it on another day. You can also bring in things like aerobics, for example, just a sport arrangement just within the premises of the organization. You don't need to start going to other premises. You can actually have a Friday where you have everyone in place. Sometimes what increases performance or what encourages people to work together is just the frequency of them meeting. So you can create that platform by exercising together. Just off work, you do an evening or afternoon aerobics. I'm sure where there are 5 people, there could be one who's active, who can make other people jump around. Okay, so that one also will start building the team together, and people will start feeling like they're one, and they will be able to contribute positively. The other thing you can do is to just bring people closer. Let them be part of the decision making of that organization. Let them not just receive instructions, but involve them in decision making. Whenever there's something that you're doing, you're taking action on certain things, have them in. At times, have braais together. Let each one come with a piece. So a pot, what do they call it? Potluck or something. I don't know what term they call it. Everyone comes with food, they eat together. Then while doing those things, you can actually discuss one or two. Oh, thank you for that, thank you for that. People will feel like they're part of that place. They have the sense of belonging, and they would want to give in more. Employees are not very, you may not use his mode. It's quite costly. If you heard what he was talking about, the bonus, one-off bonus, that's money you're talking about, salary increment. But as an SME, you may be constrained on your budget. But it doesn't mean that you are constrained on the budget. You don't employ other means that can help you to motivate your employees. There are quite a number of things that can be done. Just as a leader of that SME, you can also introduce Employee of the Week, for example, awards, Employee of the Month, where you put the best performer on the notice board. If you are in sales, for example, you have these 3 guys who are selling your products. The one hits the target, exceeds the target. You put up for that month, you just put up a photo with a sweet message and recognize them as the employee of the month. That will go a long way.
Amazing, yeah. Well explained, Mr. Mlinga. Now coming to you, Mr. Kabanda, you being a management and leadership advisor, what is your advice to management of companies on how they can practically implement rewards, and at the same time also touch on those companies with trade unions, with collective agreements?
Yeah, so for implementation of rewards, first of all, like we said, have a reward policy in place. With this one, we cannot overemphasize, because even especially for bigger companies where you are audited, the auditors, the first thing they want to see, do you have this policy in place? How did you arrive at awarding this kind of salary or this kind of bonus to this person? So it's important that you have the reward policy in place. That is the first thing.
Now, if a company doesn't have a reward policy,
it should already start thinking of consulting the experts on the market to at least assist with putting those things in place. It's very, very important. The other aspects to look at really is now managing the expectations around when these bonuses or incentives or salary increments are done. So what that means is that when the employee has performed, the appraisal was done, it's important that there's clear communication by the company as to when these things are going to be implemented. For instance, the expectation will be once the appraisals were done, for instance, in December, by end of December, the bonuses should come in, whatever it is that the employee needs to receive. If it is a salary increment, the employee expects come 1st January, the salary would have changed because based on their performance, they are entitled to receive that salary increment. So it's important then that the company communicates very clearly to the employee. There are certain times when the company doesn't actually have the money. So when that kind of a situation happens, despite what you have provided for in your own policy, you then have to have candid conversations with your staff so that the company manages the expectations rather than keeping quiet. It's very, very important so that employee then can continue working and knowing that whatever it is that they expected to receive will come at such and such a time. When it comes to the aspect around collective agreements, so there are two things that happen. There are companies that have these reward policies and they don't have unions. So it's really about how the person performs, the individual performs, and then based on that individual's performance, the company then awards or rewards that employee. Now for other companies, they have employees who are not in the union and they have employees who are unionized. Now the problems that we have seen in a number of companies is where you have a reward policy that says after this year, the person's salary increases after they perform like this. Now, forgetting that, on the other hand, because the company has a trade union and they signed the collective agreement, now in those collective agreements, it will specify that maybe this collective agreement will be in effect for 2 years, for instance. The salaries, according to each grade, are also set in that collective agreement. Now you have this side, the person has performed, they were on, I'll still give an example of a 10,000, they were on 10,000. According to the performance results, this person should now be on 12,000. Yet, in the collective agreement, it says this salary will be there for 2 years. Now we have a discrepancy, and this is what sometimes creates problems in companies. And this is the reason why we usually emphasize that companies need to ensure that the policy itself, the reward policy and collective agreements are synchronized. Because you then, if you have not taken time to synchronize these things, you then run into a problem where which one is more important? Which one is now binding? Should we focus on because the employer, as far as they are concerned, they have performed and they should get the reward. Then you say, no. Collective agreement says we can only change your salary after 2 years. You are creating unnecessary situations in the company, which now starts to even demotivate the staff. So our emphasis in this particular case is that the companies need to make sure that these things are synchronized, and even these collective agreements that companies sign, we also have to emphasize they should be a component of performance, because a lot of times when there are these negotiations, you find the only discussion is salary increment. No, where is the aspect on how the employees are going to perform and how these increments are coming about? Because at the end of the day, the company should focus on productivity, ensuring that employees perform very well, and when they perform very well, then they get to be rewarded. So this is why collective agreements and reward policies need to be synchronized to make sure that you don't create any unnecessary situations.
Well explained, Mr. Kawanda. Now coming to you, Mr. Mlenga, we have had situations where a company is making losses and yet employees still want to get business and salary increments after appraisals. In your view as a talent expert, what is it important for a company to cultivate the right mindset and culture around employees' rewards?
Thanks. A right culture around reward administration is very important. And for me, my thing is, if he who doesn't work should not eat, and that's biblical. That's the first point. What happens is that in the organization, you may have those challenges in a particular period or year where you don't meet your targets, where you don't perform as expected, as agreed at the start of the year. Then you fail to meet your performance goals. You have there's the organization and the employee. The employee will start pushing the agenda of getting whatever you agreed upon. If it's a bonus, they want to start pushing for it. Or in that point, the employer may not want to pay for things that haven't been agreed, that haven't been met. Remember that, like Mr. Kavanda was talked about collective agreement. We've been talking about planning and expectations, and after the appraisal, everyone knows. So we should inculcate that culture of knowing that if I don't work, I should not eat. Similarly, the organization should know also that if these guys have worked, there's no compromise there. They need to get their dues. So it's very important that culture is inculcated in the employees, and both parties are responsible for their actions. I think for me, that's the most critical thing that I would raise on that culture issue. Yeah.
Amazing. Mr. Kavanda, matters of performance management, including rewards, is not as simple as some of us can see it. For businesses and companies out there, it is clear that they may need an expert or consultant to help them with coming up with policies, setting up everything, and training management and staff. So maybe if you can just give us your thought on this matter.
Yes, so when it comes to performance management itself, it's been quite a difficult issue to deal with in many companies because it's very easy to really recruit people, show them a table, and they start working. But how to now manage them and make sure that the company is getting the best out of them, that becomes a big challenge for many companies. And now even when they perform, how to reward them, it becomes even a bigger challenge. And that's why we do encourage businesses and companies to actually put in place these policies. Now, where they cannot do it on their own, there is so much expertise on the market. You get in touch with the consultants, and then the consultants will now take you through. Depending, again, there are these things we have seen copy-paste, and this is why some confusions happen in some of these businesses. You just call your friend, please send me some policy, or you just copy from the internet. It's okay, the internet has given us a lot, but then you want to have an expert look at your documents to make sure that those documents, first of all, are in line with the requirements of the law. That's number one. Secondly, that those policies or documents you're developing, they have been reviewed by an expert who knows what applies in a particular industry. Then the same documents and the consultants, for instance, should also be able to customize things according to your ability. Remember, we are talking about monetary rewards, non-monetary. What is it that you are able to do as a business? Because don't just take what is in that big company. We also can do it. You are going to make sure to end up with your profits wiped out, or because we want to reward. So that's why customization becomes extremely important. At the end of the day, also, the consultants, what they do is also to benchmark. So they will look at your business, look at your performance, look at what other businesses in the industry are doing or in the sector, and then come up with a document that actually help you as an institution, and in that way you are able to then manage your staff very well. Apart from that is really the aspect around the training. what a consultant will do, and this is why we emphasize get proper consultants. It's not just again anyway, Jim and Jack. Get proper consultants who sit you down and also train management to do the right things. If you have looked at what we have been talking about, if the managers and supervisors are doing wrong things, on the reward side, you as a company are going to now reward people who should not have been rewarded, and that way you are making losses. That's why it has to be a whole complete set. Put policies in place, train the managers, train employees, have everybody focused on one thing, and that is productivity and getting the company to where it should be.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Mr. Kabanda. Your last remarks, Mr. Mlinga, as we wrap up this conversation.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it has been a pleasure being here. Just a word to employers. Please ensure that you have these policies in place if you have to realize the benefits from employee and performance and reward administration. Thank you.
How can people follow you? Any social media platforms where they can get in touch with you?
I am on LinkedIn, but I go by my names, Hilary Mulenga, and on Facebook, the same names. I will be able to find me, and we can interact further on those platforms.
Amazing, Mr. Kabanda. The last remarks.
Yeah, so
feels like 20 minutes, huh?
yeah. Yeah, so really, we've been looking at in this month we've been looking at performance management, and we have had the chance to look at the planning itself, and what we can encourage the viewers, because we've been also been receiving messages and can you still talk about planning, monitoring? Those are things that we have covered in the previous episode. So we did look at performance planning itself. We did look at how you monitor the staff performance and make sure that the employees are doing the right things. We also looked at appraisals, and in this episode today we have looked at rewarding the performance. So it's just important that people can then go back and look at all those things so that you have a complete picture, and where they need specific guidance, again, we get in touch through the consultants to help now on the step-by-step. We have been receiving messages where people say, no, I want you to talk about the situation in my company. No, now that is consultancy. So here we give general information. In terms of for those who might want to, again, follow us on the social media platforms, I am on LinkedIn. This is the platform that I like most because that's where professionals sit and chat. I know people say sometimes it's like a platform for people who want to show off. No, it's not a platform for showing off. So we can also even encourage others to join LinkedIn, especially those who are looking for employment. If you're an employee, a manager, there are people who share a lot of things in terms of articles and posts and videos. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn with over 34,000 followers, and it's a good platform. I'm also on YouTube, so most of these talks that we have on management and leadership, they are able to go on YouTube, and you'll find all those things there. I'm also on TikTok and also on Facebook. And you just search for Owen Katongo Kabanda, and it will come up with all these platforms that we have talked about.
Amazing. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming through on Labor Matters.
Thank you so much.
Amazing. To our viewers, this is what we had for you on this segment, and I hope you've learned a lot, one or two things about our topic of discussion for today. To some of you who have questions about our topic of discussion, please, you can still send in your text messages using the number which is right on your TV screen, or if you've just joined us, you can go on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV. We're live, and you'll find this interview right there. So please do follow Mr. Owen Katongo Kabanda and Mr. Mlinga on all social media platforms such as Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and TikTok for all such kind of conversations. My name is Patricia Chilambiko. Until next week, same time, same channel. It's goodbye and God bless.
Are you an employee or an employer? Do you have difficulties in understanding labor-related issues in your company?
I believe there are some business owners and managers or even employees at times who strongly believe that policies and procedures are frustrating.
Well, worry no more, because we have the Labor Matches program on KBN TV every Sunday, running from 14 to 15 hours.
For instance, it's very interesting when we talk to supervisors and managers that, like we have mentioned in the previous episodes, that supervisors and managers, CEOs, they are also considered as employers.
The Labor Matches program is here to educate both you as an employer and as an employee in order to avoid any possible labor conflicts that may arise as a result of lacking the necessary information.
Policies basically are just like guiding principles. How do you want to take care of your employees? How do you want to deal with your employees? And the employees also, they need to understand how the company wants them to be managed, what is expected of them.
Tune in to KBN TV for this and other educative information.